what do you do when people ask you awkward questions around sex? I'm here with Erika Capon from theopenphotoproject.com, and I'm Cathy Bertulli from theintimacydojo.com. And Erika, you're in the community, you know a lot of people, and I've had my own experiences. What do you do when someone asks you something that feels really awkward around sex?
Well, I'm kind of in a lucky position because I'm active in the Open Photo Project with like Non-monogamy, and I photograph a lot of sex educators. I feel like some of my friends who are not sex educators and some of my family members, they know that about me and they maybe feel comfortable asking me things.
But they wouldn't normally ask another person that wasn't that close.
Yeah, I have had a friend say that I'm like her sex expert friend, which is hilarious to me because it doesn't feel like that to me. But I do spend a lot of time with amazing sex educators, so hopefully some rubs off. And I hope a lot of times that it's not so awkward. I think sometimes people are afraid of having conversations about sex. And hopefully, at least among friends, can be a good thing to destigmatize talking about.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been awkward for me is if it's somehow kind of related to family, I would say. Like, if, I have heard stories of people who's like an adult parent of an adult asking them something about safer sex because maybe the older generations of people
don't have access.
Yeah, I mean, think about how poor sex education is in schools now, and think about how poor it was 40 years ago or 50 years ago if someone was
It didn't exist.
No, it didn't exist. And if you have a family, you had a family, you raised the kids, I mean, maybe they know about birth control, but I think a lot of older, seniors especially, they don't need to use birth control anymore. But there's still the potential problem of sexually transmitted infections. So
yeah, especially with Viagra and people having more access to healthcare. I think there's a lot of people out there. They said that I believe I have it correctly. The over 70 group is one of the fastest rising transmitters of STIs and STDs because of they weren't raised at a time when people talked about safer sex that much.
Yeah, think about it. If you're in a retirement home and you're just hanging out, it's like a college dorm.
I know.
And more power to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
They can live happy, fulfilled lives in many ways, but also it's important to be able to have those kind of conversations. And maybe your family member may not be the person to talk with, but I know we've talked before about how doctors often aren't going to have those conversations with you. So it's good to try to open up that door to have conversations in any ways possible, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not, sometimes it feels very awkward and there's things that I don't necessarily want to talk with my mother, for instance, but I can definitely send her resources or send her to someone who I think would be more appropriate. And I know not everyone feels that uncomfortable about it. There's, we were talking earlier about Ignacio Rivera, who I really admire, and they talk about very openly with close family members on the...
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when I was interviewing Ignacio for the Open Photo Project, they mentioned their Pure Love talk show, which if you go to their website, igrivera.com, there's a link to Pure Love, and it's a talk show that they do with their daughter, and just talking the two of them about fully grown, grown woman daughter, talking about growing up with a parent who was out first as a lesbian and then as a trans person, and then like talking about sex very openly, and it's really impressive and amazing to me to see their relationship and to hear how open they've always been with each other.
Yeah.
So that can be kind of like a really nice goal maybe for parents or family members to watch and aspire to have that kind of openness with their family.
Yeah, it's a great concept, and I love that you've gotten them on your poly project, because photo project, Open Photo Project. I keep messing it up today for some reason. Sorry.
It is a lot of people on it are polyamorous. So
yes.
It's having that strong influence. Yeah.
And yeah, Ignacio is fantastic. I wonder if part of it might be that we're not used to it. Like my family doesn't talk about sex very much at all. So when it does come up, it feels like, I don't know how to talk to you about this. But part of it might just be comfort zones, and why are we so scared of talking about sex? It's a very natural function, and I'd love to see families passing more good information to each other.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as a whole, our society is not that comfortable talking about sex, and of course there's exceptions to the rule, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, I think, a pretty big thread, both in schools and at home, that a lot of times, you hear about parents reading their kids a book or having a couple of really awkward conversations, and it's especially if your kid's an adolescent. Of course, it's going to be awkward, but it's or it certainly can be, because
it can be. I think it depends. Yeah.
But it's like a really good thing to be able to have. And if someone asks you as an adult a question about sexuality that maybe you're not comfortable talking with them, I think your idea of recommending resources is great.
Yeah, we get to have our own boundaries, and we get to set our own privacy limits. And just because we're out, I've had people ask me very blunt personal questions, and I'm like, I talk about sex and sexuality, but that doesn't mean you have the right to demand. You can ask, but I get to have my privacy too. We all get to have that.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and privacy in terms of if you just don't want to hear too much about
someone else's.
Yeah, depending on your relationship, if that's not a part of them that you really need to know a lot about, say, hey, check out Cathy Bartuli's YouTube. Read the Opening Up Relationship book. Listen to these awesome there's so many resources that that are great to send people now. So I think that's a really good option.
Yeah. We'll list some resources below this video as well for anyone that has questions about opening up relationships or sexuality. Thanks very much, Erika. I think I love normalizing this, because you see it, people joke about it on TV sometimes, how awkward it is, but what do you actually do? And I appreciate you sharing what you've heard from people and your experience with Ignacio, who is so very comfortable talking about this. So
yeah.
If you have questions or comments, we'd love to know. Please leave them below.